Okay, you took down this version? Yes. Yeah, that was it. I just slide specifically saying that.
I'll just say that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Morning, church. Should I say what's up of it? It's good to see each of you here this morning. There are a couple of changes that are going to be on the pamphlet that was handed out. The first one being, after the opening prayer, I asked for you all to grab a songbook. We're going to sing out of the book on one of these songs. It's number 15. Number 15, and we'll sing that through. I'll give you some more instructions on that when we get to it. And then lastly, when my love to Christ grows weak, and the communion prayer and contribution, that will be pushed to the end of the service. So, there's that. Go ahead, next slide, please. So, I've been thinking and having some thoughts throughout the week, and I stumbled across this verse. Would you all stand, please? Yet a time is coming and has now come when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth. For they are the kind of worshipers the Father seeks. God is spirit, and his worshipers must worship him in spirit and truth. True worship occurs within, engaging the heart and head. So the essence of true worship is not external, rather internal. While the external forms our worship takes are not insignificant, they are not the essence. This morning, as we worship together corporately, humble yourselves and engage within, and worship our God who is worthy of our praise. On bended knee I come, with the humble heart I come, bowing down before your holy throne.
Pray with me, please. Dear Father in heaven, we gather here today to worship you and praise you. And thank you for everything that you do for us every day. Help give us wisdom and guidance to follow the leaders in this church and let them to lead us in the way that you want this church to go. As we hear all the different things in the news, whether it's silly things or serious things, help us to, with this sickness that everyone is talking about, please help us to have the appropriate response and to not overreact or underreact. Please be with everyone who is sick and help this to pass with as little difficulty as possible. And help us all to recognize that you're in control of all things. In Jesus' name we pray.
Glad to see you. Thank you. Well, here we are in a new normal, at least for a moment. I'd like for you in just a second to take a moment in a lighter mood to look at a video prepared by Reverend Hannah Kirkstride, Warsaw, Virginia. Kind of outlines new ways we may choose to communicate and express ourselves. So Alex, if you will, at this time, play this. Please share a few comments. We have choices about how we're going to deal with things, problems in life. And hopefully we won't forget to be able to laugh even in the face of being pay attention to some things. And even though this is somewhat of a joke, it's, for our church, it's going to be tough because we're kind of a hugging, handshaking, be in contact kind of group, which is what makes us kind of a nice place to be. You can feel warm in the building. But we're going to have to postpone that for a bit until we figure some things out. Well, the elders understand that any changes to church can be both uncomfortable and frustrating. We're committed to keeping God at the center of all we do, and yet take precautions to protect members and guests from the risks posed by this virus. After consulting with Dr. Morgan, Dr. Cooper, as well as getting recommendations from both the federal and state health agencies, we've instituted a few modifications that you'll experience today. Most of them involve staying away from touching things you don't have to touch and things that are commonly touched. We're grateful today, the little cups that you were handed down when you came in, and I'll get to those in a second. Those were provided to us today by H2O Church, who had them on hand while we were trying to get some. And they graciously split their supply in half to give us half today. So Scott Miller and Jack Christian. And I appreciate that. We're also grateful to Dr. Cooper and to Dr. Morgan, particularly, who met with us and shared his expertise and time on Friday afternoon, as well as Felicia, who spent hours up here in the building, getting things ready even through yesterday. Mainly, we're grateful that God's in control. He's still in charge. He's promised us the way if we seek His way. So we seek His way. Well, keys to avoiding exposure to coronavirus seem to revolve around, like I said, keeping your hands washed after any exposure to a potentially contaminated surface, avoiding contact with those surfaces, and then recognizing our own vulnerabilities. As you saw the young men at the front handing out the communion cups today with the gloves on, and I appreciate those guys sacrificed at the altar family. Anyway, we appreciate them being willing to do that, and for Nolan and Tom. And, you know, I don't know what time people get here on Sunday morning because I have never been first. This morning I got here at 8:30 and I was third. So I'm not sure what time Tom and Morris get here. They may spend the night here, I'm not sure. But it's interesting to see all the things that have to happen to make church work. And so we're looking at all those procedures. Well, if you would, to help us adhere to the recommendations we've got for safety, here's what the elders have asked, and some of these were sent to you in an email. And by the way, if you are not on the church email list and you have an email address, I hope you will call and give that to Naomi. We're not selling that to telemarketers and those things, but we are trying to communicate best we can as we know things. So we're hoping you give us that opportunity. First of all, if you're at the at-risk population, I put out 65. David Burden immediately called me from Oklahoma City to say the CDC says 60. I'm not sure whether I'm happy to drag more of you into the net than I'm in or to just refuse to be 60. I'm not sure, but if you're in the at-risk group, as in older people, which apparently is me, or you're suffering from any immune system or respiratory issues, stay at home. That's not just to protect you, and it's not a lack of faith, and it's not a lack of anything other than a respect for other people. Now, hopefully it'll take care of you also, but really it's for other people. If you are connected to people who are at risk, if you have relatives in assisted living or anything like that, or people at home who are compromised, you need to pay attention to what groups you gather in. While at church, we're going to try to avoid unnecessary contact. You saw the deal, probably bear hugging's out, looks like. Not sure about the big pistol thing, that could be tedious. But anyway, we're going to avoid some unnecessary contact like shaking hands, hugging, try to cover up if you have a cough or sneeze. I have allergies. I've been coughing for 5 or 6 or 7 years, and so everybody's staring at me suspiciously all the time. Best I can tell, I'm fine. I still have allergies. But I'm going to try to be very conscious of not exposing any of you. There are hand sanitizer dispensers located throughout the building. Please take advantage of those. Keep stocked as we can. If you're remaining at home, we would encourage you to access the stream feed of our preaching part of our service, which is fed both through our Facebook page and now just recently through YouTube. Information about that and links to that can be found on the church website, which is the www.adacentralfamily.net, I believe. And we welcome that. If you find yourself confined at home due to virus concerns and you need help picking up groceries, medicine, or any of those type of things, please contact the church. We're going to hope that our not at-risk members will be willing to step up and help others through this time. So we may be calling on you to see if you're available to do that. Some of the things that are going to happen today, we're going to share communion at the very end of our worship service. You were given the little cup thing. Very weird, I understand, I get it. You peel the top layer off, and there's an unleavened bread, little piece of unleavened bread in the top. That'll be the first part of the communion service. Tim Canfield will be up here and probably re-explain this all to you later. You peel the next layer off, you're down to the fruit of the vine. So we'll take communion, and so you don't have to keep up with that paraphernalia at the end of the day. We will do that the very last thing we do before we walk out the door. There's some trash cans at the front door so you can leave it. Our offering seems mundane and trivial at this time, but the church has obligations. We owe things. We have people who kind of like get paid every now and then. And so offering is still going to be significant, but we're not going to pass trays for that right now. There's a big galvanized bucket going to be sitting right outside the door as you leave the auditorium, and if you are so moved, your offering can go in that bucket. I would also encourage you, if you're concerned, to check out the online offering program. That, again, information about that's available on our website. That's just a way to do things electronically if you're so moved. They're really not talking much about money, and I understand why I'm not talking about it, but there's no reason to think that money is immune from pathogen things. So anyway, we're minimizing that best we can. In order to minimize unnecessary physical contact, we've made some really hard decisions. We're canceling our classes today and for the foreseeable future. And I was asked a really good question that I didn't respond to, that I should get back to yesterday, about, well, we're in a big church service, how come we're not able to sit in a class in a small church, in a small service? It's just minimizing exposure. You know, walk in, you walk out, that's one level of exposure. We walk to another space, gather with a smaller group of people, it's another level of exposure. So we're trying to minimize that best we can. We're hoping not to shut down church. There is some chance we will shut down church. We're paying attention to the recommendations that are coming. So we've also canceled or rescheduled special events. Our 50-plus lunches. Notice that our Honduras fundraiser out in the lobby has been suspended because we're not going to exchange food and even coffee. And I really worried about that more than anything else. I tried to be an uprising. But anything that requires handing stuff and passing stuff around, we're trying to limit. We canceled the Passover celebration that's upcoming, the Easter egg hunt that's going to be in a couple weeks. Those are not done lightly. Those are fun things. Those are good things that we do. Again, the elders would say this, and again, another message that came to me yesterday, kind of chastising me for being a woman, was reminding us that we're not to live afraid, and we're not trying to live afraid. We don't live with fear. We do have a God who's promised to look after us. I don't think he asked us not to use any sense. But he also told us to love others as we love ourselves. So the best solution, best we can tell, to slow down a pandemic, which could easily overwhelm the limited medical facilities, not only in our town, but our state. There are about 250 or 300 total hospital beds in Pontotoc County. So 1,000 people got sick in 1 week. A whole bunch of them are not going to be looked after. So we were trying to look after each other. So what I would ask you to do is to hang in there with us. Continue to pray not only for our church, but for all those across the world who are affected by the coronavirus. It bleeds out in so many ways, small businesses, people who, many of us, many of you, who if you don't work, you don't get paid, and so it's a little scary. Pray with us and for us. And we will continue to update you. We're monitoring everything. As information becomes available, we'll try to let you know best we can. So thank you for your help. Barry, your prayer was perfect today. It replaced the one I was about to do. So thank you. Thank you.
Please grab your songbooks. Number 15. We'll sing the first little verse there twice, kind of how we always sing it. And we'll sing through the whole thing just once. Oh God, you are my God, and I will ever praise you. Oh God, you are my God, and I will ever praise you. I will seek you in the morning, and I will learn to walk in your ways, and step by We'll sing another.
I'm giving announcements.
Announcements and kids praise.
I don't know what.
Announcements and kids praise. Sorry.
Good morning.
Morning, church. Sorry about that. I appreciate the words that have been spoken this morning, and I encourage all of you to look at your souls because it's at risk all the time. Just like this is the way Satan looks at our soul. He plunges after it, and we need to guard it with Christ. And I had a coronavirus joke, but you probably won't get it. Sorry, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know if we have any visitors, but if you're visiting with us, this is a very typical service with a very typical response. People are here. They want to get to know you. They want to love you. They want to show you Christ. And that has not changed. So our first announcement is obviously a mistake. There's not going to be a Meals on Wheels logistics meeting after classes today because none of that is happening. But if you are interested in helping with the Meals on Wheels, it will be happening next week. Contact Ed Popletti. I know that. And or Bud Ross. So there's that. Also, we have an event coming up called The Taste of Passover. And we have registration that is open right now until April 1st. And it's completely free. And it's one of these things that Ben's going to do, and apparently it's fantastic. So if you're interested in going to the Taste of Passover event, it will be held on April 9th at the Family Life Center from 6 to 8 p.m. And seating is limited. That's why registration is necessary. I know the text is kind of small up there. Sorry about that. What? That's already been canceled? None of this is happening. This is me shooting the gun at you. Hey, okay. Mission Sunday. Oh, are we still doing that? March 22nd, that's next week. Wear your Do More Good t-shirt. Not happening either. I'm over 3. I've struck out. We are still doing the fundraisers for the mission trip to Honduras. So if you're interested in raising money and or donating, we still have the information out here. The mission trip is still on, from what I understand. I'm sorry for learning on the curb here and walking you through my learning process with that. There will be a mission fundraiser garage sale on April 4th. Are we still doing that? I'm looking at the audience. Maybe. We'll say we're maybe going to have a garage sale on April 4th. They're accepting items at noon on Friday, April 3rd, just the day before. So if you are interested there. And I have a couple of notes that I was given this morning. Marlon and Lindsay Dickerson are getting married this next week, and they've had to move the venue because of the coronavirus. So it will be held at their parents' home on March 21st at 6 in the evening. They live on West Broadway. And I guess see one of the family members for further details. And then next week, Ronnie Johnson's father, please keep the family in prayer. He's in a weakened state, and they're asking for the church to pray for that family. And then, man, I'm so sorry. Praise God. I'm glad he's in control of my
We good? Okay. All right, who remembers what we've been talking about? Anybody? McKinney? Talked about the golden calf last week. We've been talking about Moses and the Israelites. Does anybody remember what Moses went up on the mountain for? He was up there for 40 days. What was he up there for? Was he getting the Ten Commandments? Okay. So last week in Bible class, y'all talked about the golden calf. So I'm going to read the story real quick to refresh your memory. Moses stayed on the mountain for 40 days. The people thought he wasn't going to come back. They no longer feared the Lord's presence. So one day the people asked him to make us a god that we can see. Aaron melted their gold jewelry and molded it into the shape of the calf. The people bowed down to worship it. The Lord told Moses to hurry down the mountain. The people are worshiping another god. They have made me angry. Now I will destroy them. Moses begged, Lord, please forget your anger. Remember your promise to us. The Lord listened to Moses and did not destroy the Israelites. When Moses returned to the Israelites' camp, he found the wicked people dancing around the golden calf. Moses smashed the stone tablets on the ground, then he set fire to the golden calf. He ground the metal gold into powder, then threw it into the water and made the people drink it. The golden calf the people had Aaron make wasn't a real God at all. The Israelites needed to trust in the God that they couldn't see because that God is the only one and only true God. That is the same God that we need to believe and trust in today. Let's not make the same mistake and put our trust in a fake God. Who remembers our memory verse? You're right. Yep. That's later. Anybody remember our memory verse? Anybody? All right, we're going to say it together. Y'all ready? You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind. And love your neighbor as yourself. When we love God with our whole heart, we won't choose to worship a fake God. I'll say a prayer. Y'all repeat after me, okay? Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for your promise to us. Thank you for loving us. In Jesus' name, amen.
We'll have one more song before Cameron comes up and shares his message with us. If you would please stand. There's no words that I'd rather give than dancing with you as you sing over me. There's nothing else that I'd rather do, Lord, than to worship you. So rejoice, be glad, rejoice, oh my soul, for the Lord
All right. Well, this is going to be fun. Wow, what a morning. I want to thank everyone tuning in to the live stream for following directions. The rest of you. No, for real, I'm glad you guys are all here this morning. It's a smaller crowd. We're going to do this a little bit differently. I'm going to ask some questions. It's perfectly okay to shout things back at me. It's going to be fun. We're going to have a good time this morning. We have the kids with us, and they're going to be loud, and that's totally okay. We're going to roll with it. If I get distracted, we'll make it back to the notes. It'll be just fine. Don't worry about running out with your child. I promise this is going to be just fine this morning. We are going to make it, right? Yeah, we're here. We're going to make it. This is going to be so much fun. And as we kind of navigate this time in Ada, Oklahoma, and in our country and in our world, there's one group in Ada that I'm particularly concerned about right now, and kind of just thinking through, like, what does it look like for us to be the church with them? And I know we've talked a lot about the 60 plus, and I'm right there. I'm going to Walmart anyways. Like, I'm grocery shopping, so if you need something, like, call us, right? Like, call the younger people that are going to be out there. But the international students at East Central University are now locked inside of a city that could potentially go into quarantine any day now. And we don't really know what that looks like. Like, we don't know if the dorms shut down. We don't know if the cafeteria stays open. Like, we just really don't know what that looks like. So as we, yes, look at our family, look at the older members of our church, great. But if you see an international student this week, give them some encouragement. Buy them a meal, something. Because this is a different time for them. And this is a good time for the church to love their neighbor. Like, this is a great time for the church to love their neighbor, which is a great segue into what we're going to be talking about this morning. So I want to start by asking the question, who said the phrase, love your neighbor? Who said that? Jesus, right? Jesus. Did someone start singing Jesus Love Me? Did that happen? Let's roll with it, alright? That's great. Jesus said the phrase, love your neighbor. And we love that phrase, love your neighbor. And we love when we find it in the Gospels. We love when we read in the Gospels that phrase, Jesus loves your neighbor. In fact, we just love the Gospels. There's so much there. And this funny thing happens when we're reading the Gospels. We can almost make Jesus argue for anything that we believe. Isn't that interesting? Like, you'll hear people argue for both nonviolence and war by using the same gospel. Like, you'll see people arguing for capitalism and socialism by reading the same gospel. It's just interesting that happens because we love reading the Gospels. We love the whole New Testament. Everybody's got a favorite verse. It's rarely in the Old Testament. And if it is, it's a prophet quoting it, and it's out of context. We love the New Testament. We love studying Corinthians. Ben's doing a Christology study right now. We love the New Testament. We don't love Leviticus. We do not love the book of Leviticus. Leviticus is like that family member that we don't talk about. Like, it's there, and it can come over and swim in our pool, but it can't come in the house. You know, like, it's never the book we study with our non-Christian friends. Like, I've never shared Jesus with someone and said, we're going to start with Leviticus. In fact, I want to ask you a question this morning. When I say the word Leviticus, what phrases or words come to mind? When I say the word Leviticus, what phrases or words come to mind? Law, okay.
Monotonous.
Hard to understand, monotonous. Say it again. Diseases. Fitting. What else? I got law, monotonous, hard to understand, diseases. What other words or phrases come to mind when I say Leviticus? What? Burden, okay? Sacrifice. Keep them coming. We're going to be here a while. What words or phrases come to mind when I say the word Leviticus? Protection. Great. What else? Jason, what comes to mind? Something about stoning people is in there. Yes, it is. And I get to preach on it this morning. What else? Guard yourself. Right, there's kind of this protection there. Separation. Who else? They have to buy you, right? Okay, we're not talking about that this morning, but go read that. It's the only real story we have in Leviticus, and it's mind-boggling. Basically, just go read it. Yeah, go read the story. It's crazy, and it's weird that it's there. Yeah, we get these words like burden, primitive, barbaric, fear, separation, hard to understand, protection, guard yourself. Even the story of Nahab and Abihu, it's not a fun story. Someone's son dies and he's basically told, get back to work. The book of Leviticus is really an interesting book for me. Because back in July, I was going through some stuff, right? A lot of us were. And for some reason, I ended up with the book of Leviticus, and it changed my heart. I became obsessed with this book, and to be quite honest, I have been obsessed with this book for the better part of a year now. And so when we like to put this on the book of Leviticus, it's primitive, it's barbaric, don't touch it. But is the phrase love your neighbor primitive and barbaric? Because when Jesus says that phrase, he's quoting a very specific book in the Bible, Leviticus. And as we start to take a closer look at Leviticus, as we get past our 21st century mindset and we get into the book of Leviticus, we realize that the book of Leviticus takes the mundane, the ordinary day, and it seeks the beauty in it. The book of Leviticus, it's about a proper relationship with the soil, with the earth. It's about breakfast. It's about order. And the book of Leviticus starts with the line, God continued calling Moses from the tent of meetings. This phrase, God continued calling, is actually one word. It's one Hebrew word, vayikra. Everyone say it. It's a fun word, vayikra. Right, it's a fun word to say. It's a fun word to say. God continued calling, vayikra. In fact, Christians are the only people that really call this book Leviticus. We get it from the word Levite, and we see it as a priestly manual. But our Jewish fathers called the book Vayikra, and continue to call the book Vayikra. God continued calling. So what was that earlier call? Right, that's an interesting way to start a book of the Bible. What was that earlier call? What happened? What is he continuing? What's God continuing? Well, what's happening is we're dropping into the ongoing story from the book of Exodus. And so to understand how the book of Leviticus is set up and how it starts, we have to first understand the book of Exodus. And the book of Exodus, in many ways, begins with the absence of God. He's not really there in the beginning, but the people of Israel. Why does it begin that way? Why are they there? Well, we have to go back to Genesis. We have to go back to Genesis to understand why the people are there. They came in slavery in the form of one man, found freedom, and years later ended up back in slavery. And now the Egyptians are forcing Israel to build with brick and mortar. And this is a callback to a story in Genesis, the Tower of Babel, where we see these people invent brick and mortar to oppress other people. And now they themselves are being oppressed using brick and mortar. Crazy, right? And what are they building? They're building storage facilities for the upper class and the wealthy to hoard their riches. And the world is ordered in a very particular way. And Egypt is ordered in a very particular way. Israel has this clear hierarchy of human value. Right? These humans are valued the most, and these humans are valued the least. And Israel is right down here. Israel can't change how the world is ordered, it seems. And that leaves us with the question, how does the world get ordered? Who decides that? Like, how does the world get ordered, and who decides that? And then Israel cries out. Now here's an interesting phrase. It doesn't say Israel cried out to God. It just says Israel cried out, and God heard their cry. A lot of times we like to ask the question, is God with us? That's the wrong question. The question is, can you hear the cry of the oppressed? God hears the cry. An interesting side note, the book of Revelation ends with no more tears. God hears the cry of the oppressed. And God responds to Israel with freedom. And we pick up in the book of Leviticus. Because at the beginning of Exodus, they are begrudgingly submitting and building with brick and mortar. At the end of Exodus, they're building the tabernacle with joyful hearts for their God. Same action, different heart. And it's that God responds with freedom, and we pick up with Leviticus. We get this amazing book about order and ritual. And so here's the basic outline of the book of Leviticus. Chapters 1 through 7 are the 5 sacrifices. 8 through 10 are about the priests. 11 through 15 are instructions for being ceremonially clean or unclean. Chapter 16 is about the Day of Atonement. It deals with the concept of purity. And chapter 17 through 27 is like a holiness code. How do we live out what we just learned? And now to everyone's favorite part of Leviticus, the sacrifices and offerings. Doesn't that just get you going this morning? You're just so pumped right now. I know I am. All right, so there are 7 commands for the first sacrifices. And that's significant because numbers are important to the Jewish people. There are 7 commands. And 7 is the theme you're going to see throughout Leviticus. To Israel, 7 signified creation. Created in 7 days, and to them, this number is creation. And there are 5 sacrifices, or there are 5 offerings, and they all have something beautiful to tell us that reveals to us about God and His plan for having humans here on earth. Chapter 1 is about the burnt offering. Chapter 2 is the grain offering. Chapter 3 is the fellowship offering. Chapter 4 is the sin offering. And chapter 5 is the guilt offering. The word offering, it's rooted in gratitude, right? Like it's rooted in the word gratitude. And we know this because the first 3 offerings are completely voluntary. You don't have to do these offerings. This isn't a command. It's an invitation. And this tells us something about this God. The word offering being rooted in the idea of coming near shows us this God is not distant or detached or childish. You can actually come near this God. This God continues calling you near to him. Now, the last two offerings are when you realize you've done something wrong and now you need to make it right. Leviticus does not begin with law or judgment or condemnation. Leviticus begins with, if anyone wants to come near to God, you can, and here is what you do when you are filled with gratitude. Leviticus asks the question, is the world ordered well? And I guess I stand up here asking that same question this morning. Like, is the world ordered well today? Does everyone have enough food? Is there enough water going around? Do we know what to do with conflict with our neighbors? Do we, like, there's refugees in every country. Do we know what to do with them? We don't even have enough toilet paper for everyone right now. Like, it is very evident this week that the world is not ordered well. And Leviticus is about ordering the world and the beauty within the mundane. And how do we do that? With ritual and with space. So Leviticus asks the question, how do we order the world well? Well, we start with breakfast. We start with breakfast. Side note, as I began to study Leviticus, I stopped doing one thing when it came to meals. I stopped eating in the car. Right? There's just kind of this importance to ritual. You sit down, right? And you turn your phone off, and you enjoy the meal that God has given you. Or you look your family in the eyes. Like there's something beautiful about ritual. If there wasn't, you wouldn't be here this morning. Why do we get so excited when our favorite worship leader leads at Central, and we get so upset when our least favorite worship leader leads at Central? Oh, we're only allowed to talk about that behind closed doors? Like we haven't all had that conversation? Because we realize there's something important that goes on with ritual. The world's not ordered well, and we have to realize that. Now, the second part of that is space. What is going on within the day? Today is beautiful, and there's never going to be a 24 hours like this again. And Leviticus highlights how beautiful the mundane day is. Now, Leviticus, the offerings end interestingly, where it says, after the offerings, the first time these have ever gone on, the first times that they focused on breakfast, the first time that they focused on the soil, and they picked it up and they felt it, the first time they focused on how to restore conflict between each other. The first time they said, what do we do with the refugees in our land? The first time that they offered to God out of gratitude and realized we can come near to this God. He is not distant. He is not detached. The people of God did something super cool. In chapter 9, they cried out with joy and laughter. This book is more important now than ever because it tells us that ordinary people can live in the midst of great stresses with curiosity and joy and happiness and awe and wonder. And I wrote this ending before the coronavirus was ever a thing. The book of Leviticus shows us that ordinary people can live in the midst of incredible stresses with curiosity and happiness and wonder and joy. Let's pray. God, thank you so much for this morning. Thank you for what you're doing through your church. God, thank you for inviting us into your story. We love you, and it's in your son's name we pray. Amen.
We're going to sing this next song for the communion service. When my love to Christ first be, when for thee perfect I see, then I go to thee, garden of Gethsemane. There I walk amid the shades, while the lingering twilight fades. See thy suffering, friendless one, weeping, praying, there alone. When my love for man grows weak, when for stronger faith I seek, Hill of Calvary I go, to thy scenes of fear and woe. There behold his agony, suffered on the bitter tree. See his anguish, see his pain, but triumphant still then to life I turn again, learning all the work of pain, learning all the life and love in the full
Well, this would be the time that you take out your communion cups. As Bill said, there are two layers to this. One is the thin layer at top, which will open up the area where the wafer is at, the unleavened bread. And the bottom layer, which has a little heavier full pad, is what you'll pull on when you're ready to take the vine. Normally, when we do communion, the plates are passed, and so when you take your communion, there's some time in between to pray. And that's probably about a 5 or 6 minute time between taking the unleavened bread and then taking the fruit of the vine. That would be a long time to sit and wait in this setting, so in between when we do communion, I'm going to give about a minute if you want to pray in between their taking the unleavened bread and fruit of the vine. And when we get to the offering prayer, that will also be the closing prayer. Then when we're done with that, you're free to go. As Bill said, there will be if you are inclined to leave an offering, there will be a bin outside to collect the offering. And also there will be trash cans at the end of, when you walk out also, to discard the empty cup that you have. It's been an unusual day. You know, Cameron talked about kind of traditions and rituals. This certainly wasn't one of those days for us, and probably many other churches. But you know, it is a regular day. God is here with us every day. God has been with his people every day. Sometimes we don't see it. And things are presented to us that we have choices, as Bill said. We can choose fear, which leads to panic, which leads to buying up 150 cases of toilet paper for one house. Or you can choose, and I believe that fear and panic comes from Satan. Or you can choose calm and prayer. Not only in the big things, but the little things, like Mark Phelps demonstrated earlier when the first 4 things he mentioned were no longer there. That's a hard thing to speak up here in front of a congregation when everything you're saying may be not right. But he dealt with it with calm and collectedness, a sense of peace, and I believe that came from God. We look at coronavirus right now and we think, oh, this is the latest thing that's going to kill us. But you know what? There's something every day that can kill us. Always has been that way. We open doors and sometimes there's a lamb behind it. We open doors and sometimes the lion is there. I don't know whether this is going to be more like the lamb or the lion. But we don't treat it with fear and panic. As Bill says, we're treating it with cautious prudence. Certainly it is not fear that has kept many of our brothers and sisters away today, but a caution, a reasonable caution. And it's not a lack of fear and arrogance that brought us here today. It is reasonable caution. And that comes from God. So remember, as you go forward this day and every day coming up, no matter what faces you, that God is with you. And if you pray to God, you believe in God, and you let God speak to you, you will have calm, even if you do face the line. We pray. Heavenly Father, you know what's on our hearts. Some more than others are fearful of what we face on this day. But Father, I ask that you put that peace and calmness in every one of us, that no matter what happens, you are in control. You have a plan. And that plan is for every one of us. Father, if your plan is for me to be called home sometime fairly soon, then let me be ready to be called home. But if not, Father, let me stay here and serve my fellow man and let them know that you are God and that your Son died for each and every one of us on that cross so that one day we may be with you. But while we are here, let us live in calmness and faith that you are in control. We ask all this through your Son, Jesus. Please pray with me again. Heavenly Father, with this cup, we remember the sacrifice that your Son made for us. The healing power of his blood that washes over all that believe. To wash away the sins that each and every one of us has. So that one day we may come into your presence and be with you eternally. Father, as we go out from this church,
We ask that we use that forgiveness that you've given us to bring others back to you through your Son. Amen. Father, as we prepare to go out from here, we prepare our offering for you. We know that you don't need anything from us. This is more for us to know that everything we have comes from you. But what we get back, Father, we ask that you multiply and use for your purpose, and that you help us to be the hand of that purpose. Father, as we leave and go out, help us to remember our humanity, that humanity that was given to us from you, that in times of crisis, Father, we help our neighbors. We be there to lean on each other. And when our neighbors need something, help us to be of the mindset that we give freely, just as we give freely to you now. We ask all this through your Son, Jesus.